It's so snowy outside, but my apartment's so warm.
I admire your etching.
I admire your form.
Oh, you're just so insistent.
I've been waiting so long.
And I've been getting ideas from JoeTownsend.com.
Horror for the holidays, how about that? You're like the canary and I am the cat. We've got a roaring fire and a bearskin rug, and I'm expecting so much more than a kiss and a hug.
The girls at the office all talk about you. You gotta be stopped, and that's just what I'll do.
I feel sick and dizzy.
And why is that, you think?
When I wasn't looking, you switched our drinks.
Horror for the holidays, JoeTownsend.com.
I can't feel my legs and I can't move my arms. Please don't let me die, I'll mend my ways.
Enjoy your last horror for the holidays.
JoeTownsend.com.
Oh, hey! Hi! Time for Retro Trekkers. I'm Captain John, and of course, my first officer is here, and you know him well. It's Commander Joe Townsend. Oh, Commander! You look so incredible in your new uniform.
I do. Thank you, my captain, for my new uniform. We do switch between shows from time to time. Yes, absolutely. Here we are. Down a little TNG gear now. So SB80 has come a long way, and the most recent development, of course, is our brand new garments.
I love these uniforms so much, and yet there isn't a large array out there. And I'm like, well, then we should sell them. If they're not going to sell them, then we should sell them, by God. Chris is with us. Chris says, I'm wearing my red shirt. Good. That makes you operations or no, executive. Does that make him executive in the TNG universe?
Well, in the TNG universe, it would put him squarely in operations, yes.
Operations.
No, I'm sorry, command. We're command.
Command.
Yeah.
Thank you. See,
good thing we have people like Chris and Raphael to keep us honest and on the straight and narrow.
We have got a real cracker of a show tonight. This is the first installment in a brilliant trilogy that has been put together by our own Mr. Townsend. And we are looking at the sexier side of Star Trek, which, look, people can say anything about this. They can say you guys are just trying to get better ratings. No. That is true. Ain't no denying. They can also say you are exploiting part of Star Trek. What about Gene Roddenberry would make you think that was a bad thing? Yes. Where would Gene Roddenberry be? Oh, I can't believe you're exploiting these women that I put in tiny mini dresses, or the great line from Galaxy Quest about the captain. I see you managed to get your shirt off.
Well, I'll also point out that along those lines that I'll give you a tidbit up front that these velour uniforms at this era of TOS,
yeah,
they shrank after every washing, and they were required to be washed every single day.
Right.
So right. They're just getting tinier and tinier.
I forgot about that, but that actually that's not something necessarily that a producer does. That's something that the union says. You're not going to put unlaundered uniforms on our actors, and it is for health reasons, and that's really good. Oh my gosh. You know what I forgot to do, Joe?
What'd you do?
Oh. Got to do the intro to the show. Welcome to Retro Trekkers, everybody.
Captain John and Commander Joe. Retro Trekkers. We love our Star Trek. Retro Trekkers.
Got to get a lot of use out of this uniform.
Right.
Get down with the red
Okay, so there we go. Yeah, so this week, what a great choice you have made, Mr. Townsell. The gorgeous and yet historically really significant and original episode, Mud's Women, from TOS, those old scientists. I'm sorry, the original series, Star Trek. This is a great choice. What made you want to start with this one, Joe?
Well, I mean, I did, think of the trilogy generally first. I thought, well, what best fits that trilogy of Trials and Titillation? And of course, you're going to come to Mud's Women, right off the bat. I mean, obviously, there's as we'll see, I think in the beats, there are a lot of very attractive, sexy, voluptuous women throughout the original series. But this is where it all started. I mean, these three ladies and Mud's Women. What more could you look at to kick off this trilogy?
Now, Joe, how do you put shows in order in your head? What is your head canon, if you will, for where this show lies? Because it was, it aired as the 6th episode, I think. I don't know. I didn't take.
I think that's right. Yeah, 6th episode. Not 6 produced, because that was very common at the very beginning of this series, which I think is what you're asking.
Let's talk about that, because it's fairly significant, especially when one breaks down this particular episode, Mud's Women. Though it was the 6th one aired, it was the 3rd one produced. And I didn't go with an official. I really could have, but I didn't go with an official introduction to it as we do Genesis sometimes. I could have, but I didn't, because had other stuff going on this week. Good news, people in my family are getting Christmas presents.
That's wonderful. They were all good boys and girls. As is John, of course.
Well, you're very, very kind, my friend. So this is the 3rd episode. Now, the story that I would like to tell is that we have in the world of Gene Roddenberry getting Star Trek on the air, that entire story, and it is a big, complicated story with so many different steps and things that went to it. So I'll break it down really, really quickly. Gene Roddenberry put together the original package of what this show was going to be. It literally was called Star Trek Is. And in that package of what this show is and what it's going to be, he included some sample plots that were going to be episodes in the 1st season. You do that all the time when you pitch a show. You basically say, look, I have this concept and I have all of these episodes planned on that concept, because one of the things you need to prove, and I'm sure people at home can remember TV shows that were not good at this. How long can the show stay on the air? How long can the premise hold together? A lot of shows will change as they go because the original premise wasn't strong enough. Now, of course, Star Trek, that's a strong premise.
Yeah.
Another thing that happened was they did the pilot, and the pilot was called The Cage. And it had Captain Pike, and it had a very different Spock, and it had a number 1 who was played by Majel Barrett. It was a very different show. And that pilot was not accepted. It was turned down by the network.
Too cerebral.
Now, it being too cerebral, the fact that they got a second chance, and of course, who do we credit for them getting their second chance? Lucille Ball.
Yes.
It's just like one of the greatest origin stories in all of television. Lucille Ball saved Star Trek and actually made sure that it got it on the air. She ran Desilu with her ex-husband, Desi Arnaz, at the time. And she was able to go to bat and to say, look, this is a really good show. I'm going to put up the money for another pilot. So as Joe says, too cerebral on The Cage. So now they had to take a different approach. Now, fortunately, in the case of Mudd's Women, there's a great writer named Stephen Kandel.
Mhm.
And Stephen Kandel, not to be confused with Stephen J. Cannell, Stephen Kandel was a very clever guy. And when he saw the notes about the cage being too cerebral, he said, I'm going to go into these sample storylines, these planned plots that Gene has, and I'm going to make a script out of one of those. And I'm going to do it in such a way that it's a people story about people, which is what TV was really into in the 60s. It's what a network wanted. Tell me the human story. And so he got a story that had much more people story in it than science fiction. And he shaped that into Mudd's Women. Of course, Gene Roddenberry being Gene Roddenberry, it's his story. So he went over everything. Stephen Kandel did some nice writing on this, but Gene Roddenberry really, hammered it with the Gene Roddenberry hammer. And that'll come up later. And that gives us a story that, I think it's very significant too, that the story is very much based on something you would see in a Western. And that's kind of cool.
Well, I mean, it was Wagon Train to the Stars by Gene's self-description.
Yes.
So it fits. Well,
Yes,
and Raphael knew that as well, obviously.
Wagon Train.
That was the 5-word elevator pitch for this series.
Right. So with that, I think we might be ready to start talking about the plot of this episode.
AKA the beats.
Let's do the beats.
Retro Trekkers. Trials and Titillation. Part 1 of 3. Mudd's Women.
I love how you read that. Joe Townsville's Red Shoe Diaries.
The good ship Enterprise is in hot pursuit of an unregistered cargo ship. It must be a scruffy-looking nerf herder scoundrel piloting that bucket of bolts. And just wait until you see what cargo this little vessel is smuggling.
Ooh.
The ship is coming up fast on an asteroid belt. Too fast, apparently, as the engines begin to overheat. To save the captain of the cargo ship from his own short-sightedness and stupidity, the Enterprise extends its shields around this SS Space Minnow. Unfortunately, it's too much for the little ship that can't, and its lithium crystals short out.
I love these technical difficulties.
Scotty manages to beam off the ship's captain. No, it's not the skipper. And also, the 3 women attending. It's definitely not Ginger, Marianne, and Lovey. This happens just before an asteroid destroys the little cargo ship. The ship's captain, using a mediocre Irish brogue, falsely identifies himself as Leo Francis Walsh. He claims he fled the Enterprise out of fear that it was a hostile ship. Yeah, whatever, says Scott and McCoy.
Yeah.
They're too busy leering at the 3 hot babes. Spock lifts an eyebrow and rolls his eyes.
Fascinating.
Spock presses Walsh for more details, but the flamboyant space pirate dismisses the Vulcanian, choosing to save his reveals for the man in charge, the one and only Captain James T. Kirk.
I love the music interludes in this one.
Thank you.
Within minutes, the male Enterprise crew members are distracted as the episode's cameraman focuses on the derrieres of Walsh's women.
As does
Every crew
Mr.
person,
Spock.
that is, except Spock. Walsh,
Oh, not this Spock.
ever the pleased pimp, shrugs. Vulcanians are tough nuts to crack and tough icebergs to melt. Walsh and his women are taken to Kirk's quarters. The captain is pissed. That is, until he gets a gander at the 3 vixens. Eve McCurron, Magna Kovacs and Ruth Bonaventure are actually cargo, not crew personnel.
Uh-oh.
This makes Walsh a human trafficker. Great. Walsh blames Kirk for the accident. Kirk responds to that accusation by having the cargo ship captain confined to quarters pending a formal hearing. Meanwhile, a single remaining functional lithium crystal is failing fast. Scotty says a new set of crystals is needed. Set course for the mining colony of Rigel 12.
Monolithium.
Before the hearing, Walsh coaches the women on their testimony. He tells them not to lie, but to also not submit to a medical exam. At the inquiry, Kirk learns that the women are to be mail-order brides for settlers on Orpheus 3. Having had no luck with Tinder or eHarmony, each woman agreed to be sold into servitude and live on a dreary planet hell rock planet. Finally, Leo Walsh is revealed to be con man Harcourt Fenton Mudd. The jig is up, so he drops that fake Irish brogue.
This is my new acting headshot.
Mudd has a long history of being a bad boy and has been sentenced to psychiatric treatment. His ship's master's license has also been revoked. Kirk decides to hand Mudd over to the men in the white coats ASAP. Toward the end of the hearing, the final lithium crystal fizzles out. Mudd overhears Kirk's orders to contact the miners on Rigel 12, and his wheels begin turning once again. How about this scheme? The women can work their charms on the lonely, isolated, overworked, rich lithium miners. Mudd dreams of taking over the Enterprise and making Kirk his lackey. As luck would have it, there are 3 miners, 1 for each woman. The mystery of the women deepens when Ruth sets off an alert on McCoy's medical scanner. McCoy wonders whether they're actually as beautiful as they seem, or if everyone is just being catfished. Eve greets Kirk by lying on his bed in his quarters.
Hello.
Eve claims she's feeling harassed by the Enterprise crewmen and is no longer feeling flirtatious. Actually, Mudd put her up to it. She then flees to Mudd's quarters and tells him she's feeling ill, saying it's time for a quick fix.
I'm gonna eat your candy.
Magda steals a communicator. Mudd uses it to contact the miners before Kirk and negotiates a deal. The women begin turning decrepit, instantly becoming old and haggard. But no problemo. Pimp Daddy Mudd takes out a pillbox and gives each woman a dose, immediately restoring their youth and allure. It's better than Olay rejuvenating cream. How do I get a few of those magic Venus pills? Meanwhile, Spock is examining the burnt-out lithium crystal. The miners come aboard the Enterprise. Kirk offers them a fair price for new crystals, but is shocked that they want to barter. They want to look at Mudd's women. In addition, they want Mudd released and all charges dropped. Kirk is again pissed and refuses the offer. Mudd smirks and decides to bide his time. The ship's beginning to fall apart and will spiral downward toward Rigel 12. So, obtaining the crystals is inevitable despite the terms. Kirk, Spock, and Mudd beam down to the forbidding surface of Rigel 12, where the women are now living in the lap o' luxury with Bill Childress and the other miners, Herm Gossett and Benton. Needless to say, they're definitely not to be confused with bashful, grumpy, or dopey. Childress keeps stringing Kirk along. The miners start fighting over Ruth and Magna. Eve, already feeling guilt pangs, runs out into the storm. Childress goes out to find her and the 2 go missing. The Enterprise malfunctions further. Kirk snaps at Scotty, but then apologizes, and Scotty tells him the ship has approximately 5 hours of power left.
He snaps at him again.
Childress finds Eve and brings her back to his quarters. The Enterprise locates them by detecting the heat of a cook stove in his hut. All the modern 23rd century conveniences on Rigel 12. Kirk and Mudd prepare to beam down. Childress and Eve begin to warm up to each other as Eve proves that beauty is more than skin deep. But as her looks degrade into Butterface again, the honeymoon is over and the couple has words.
Ooh.
Kirk and Mudd arrive.
I love this.
Kirk has 2 words for the miner. Venus drug. Well, mud has two other words. Caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. You know, there is a sucker born every minute, or in this case, 3. Thinking with the wrong head, 2 of the miners have already married Mud's women. Childress is pissed. And Eva's pissed that the chief miner is nothing more than a shallow dude who doesn't appreciate inner beauty. Proving her point, she takes the Venus pill and turns beautiful once again. Childress isn't happy because her beauty is a sham. But, big twist here, Crook reveals that he switched the Venus pill with a placebo.
What?
Eve's beauty is a result of her own self-confidence.
Yeah, baby.
Childress is off the hook
Oh,
for his
behave.
misogyny, now having seen the light. Childress also agrees to give Crook his
Oh, my
crystals
goodness.
needed for the Enterprise. Mud slips away to take over a planet of androids. To be continued in Season 2. Meanwhile, over on SB-80, Captain John and Commander Joe are entertaining their dates, presumably also introduced to them by Harcourt Fenton Mudd. To be continued in future titillating episodes of TOS.
And I am amazed that you found so many beautiful women and none of them were Barbara Babcock.
Oh, I feel bad now. I should have. I know you're a big fan. Should have included Barbara.
We will save Ms. Babcock for later. There's plenty of time in the future for Barbara Babcock. Right now, it's time for us. Let's get down and dirty. Breaking on down, Trek Man.
I don't know. I already feel kind of dirty, John.
Let's talk about what we like, maybe even love, about this episode. There is so much here that I think does live up to the idea of a Western in space. That's really how I see this episode, because there were episodes of Wagon Train and High Chaparral and Bonanza and Gunsmoke that did talk about mail order brides. That was a thing that actually happened.
Oh, sure.
You know, a lot of women wanted a new life. It was actually a big part of women joining the Mormons to go out west as well. They wanted a better life than what they had, and they were making a educated guess that maybe this would work. Not that it would be easy, but you know, women throughout history have had very few choices about what their life is going to be. So this was a way that happened. Is that kind of how you're feeling, Joe, or how do you see this plot?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, it definitely brings vibes to me of particularly Bonanza. It seemed like this was definitely an ongoing Bonanza theme. You know, with Little Joe and Haas especially.
Yeah.
And we kind of got those two guys on the, Rigel 12 planet. No, I mean, it definitely harkens back to that. And I think that's one reason why we can partially, maybe even completely excuse the approach. I mean, remember, this is 1966. We don't want to always allude to the time frame in which something was made to address any concerns we might have about this approach. But come on, I mean, these were just 3 lonely dudes doing their job on a remote mining planet. They needed some companionship, and the women were all for it too. So they alluded to the women as cargo, but realistically, they were just, everyone was paying for a much needed service, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's whether or not it's right, whether or not it is fair, whether or not that's this leans more on history than it does on what's a great idea and what's
Right.
the magical future that we want. And for that to happen right at the beginning, one must also remember that the magically rewarding life in the Galactic Federation had not really been solidified at this point in Star Trek, that they were more looking at the frontier.
Exactly. It's definitely the frontier, the wagon train to the stars approach. I do think it was a wise move, as you alluded to earlier. This was one of the handful of episodes considered to be the second pilot. And it's probably just as well they didn't go that route.
Right.
Because if this had been your very first look at Star Trek, other than the salt vampire, you might have had problems.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, there were some really strong contenders for what was going to be the new pilot. And of course, they ended up going with Where No Man Has Gone Before.
that's right.
And so accidentally there one of the crewmen gets godlike powers, and Sally Kellerman is working with him, and she's so gorgeous.
Yes.
And he gives her the powers as well, and then he becomes too powerful. It's a really interesting story. There's ray guns and a planet and powers, and there's all sorts of really interesting things that go on in that. I think they made the right choice, though I also have to go with the one that you mentioned before, because I believe that was the first one I ever saw, was the Man Trap.
Well, the Man Trap was the first one broadcast.
It was the first one broadcast?
Yes, they actually ran Where No Man Has Gone Before after the Man Trap, which was really odd since it was just a totally different look and feel. But no, Where No Man was the second pilot, but Man Trap was the first aired.
Thank you for pointing that out, because I've been confused by all the different things that I've been reading about which one. Okay, so in order to sell the series again,
yes,
to make a successful sale of the series, they produced Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Right. You have Noah McCoy, you have Dr. Piper, etc.
Oh, right.
Which was odd, because you saw McCoy was so prominent in what they aired first, then he's gone, and he's back the third week.
Yeah. Raphael points out the network wanted a monster. Yeah. And I get that. I totally get that, because in 1966, they've already, oh gosh, I'm really ahead of my skis on this one. I believe Lost in Space has already debuted.
It's been on for a year. Lost in Space was 65 to 68, Star Trek 66 to 69.
Oh, it's so great to do this show with Joe Townsend. I cannot tell you.
I get lucky sometimes, John, believe me.
There are so many times when there are these big gaps in my memory, and Joe Townsend knows all the things that fill those gaps. So the network got their monster. It's a good-looking show. It's an interesting show, but I have to admit, as a child, I hated this episode because it was so boring. I tell this story every time, but I was in first grade, and the show had just started in syndication, and that's when I started to watch the show. So as far as I knew, it was a brand new show, even though my brother, 3 years older, was like, no, the show was on before. And it basically unfurled to me the way it had run on the network. Only we were seeing it every night because it was in syndication.
Right.
And now that after all this time watching this episode, I really dig this one. Do you like this one, Joe?
Oh, sure. This is actually, I do, always have. It's definitely one of the most fondly remembered episodes of TOS.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We haven't mentioned him yet, but Roger Carmel. I apologize if that's Carmel or Carmel, but had this one had been half successful with another actor, we'll never know, but I doubt it. I mean, this man was so talented and such a great fit for the role. So much so they brought him back, and I'll touch on that in tidbits a little later. But so the lead, obviously, the three women, very well cast, especially Eve.
Yes,
who gave a lot of nuances. I think it'd been just totally one-dimensional. Okay, three space babes, and being sold by this louder space pirate,
right?
Wouldn't have been as successful or memorable, but the fact that it was actually fair, very nuanced and multi-layered, I think made it for a great show. It's one of the best, in my opinion.
We're starting to go into this direction, so let's go. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about MVPs in this episode. I have her in my notes. Karen Steele.
Yes.
So Karen Steele plays Eve. Eve is sort of the more, I don't know, I'm trying not to use the word older. She's the most mature of the three
Mature,
women.
rational, thoughtful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she knows why she's doing this, and
Yeah.
she had been she'd grown up with her brothers, and they were dirt poor, and she had to cook and clean for them, and her life sucked, and she wanted a life of her own. So that became a big part of her going out into the galaxy and trying to find a place of her own. Eventually, being basically pimped out by Harcourt Fenton Mudd. But that's Eve, played by Karen Steele. She was great, but she's not my MVP. Is she your MVP, Joe?
No, she's not.
Oh my gosh, who's your MVP?
Well, I'm going to be obvious here, or predictable at any rate. And as I alluded to, I mean, Roger Carmel playing Harry Mudd. I mean, it is Mudd's Women. He's in the title. He's the lead guest star, and he's just the flamboyancy and the deceptiveness and everything that makes up Harry Mudd is apparent here. And again, he's brought back more than once, so I have to give it to good old Harry.
Yes, and I'm going to actually go one step back. I'm basically agreeing with you, but I have to give it to the writer Stephen Kandel. Now, Stephen Kandel was looking at that original treatment by Gene Roddenberry, and it was at that point, as you probably know this, Joe, and if I'm jumping on tidbits, I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter. It's all one fluid conversation, John.
That's true, which is why we love this show. He looked at the original treatment, which was called The Women, and it was just going to be about these three women. And he thought that isn't quite interesting enough. He really thought that they could go deeper if there was a guy who was, as Joe said in the beats, trafficking. The guy who was actually, the space pimp, who was closing the deals. And he wanted to create a character that he had not yet seen in any of these materials, which is, if you go out into space, the morality is different from how it is on Earth. It's different from how it is in the Federation. There is an amorality, there is an immorality that exists in the frontier of space. And he wanted to come up with a guy who would be exploiting that. And his thinking the whole time was the character in Wizard of Oz, who's the guy, he's played by Frank Morgan, but he's the guy who sells potions and has the crystal ball, the flim flam man, the frontier con man, and he thought, why don't we make this guy, and why don't we literally give him the name Mudd? Like, his name is literally Mudd. And by creating this character, he adds a whole new dimension to what it's like out in space. Okay, there's other like Caucasian people out in the universe. They don't necessarily come from Earth. They don't necessarily have Earth standards of behavior. And what would they be like? And that's always been interesting in Star Trek. All the way from the original series to Discovery, we meet characters like that. I really love that. I'm glad that Stephen Kandel introduced that. I'm glad that he added something to what Roddenberry already had. And I'm also glad that there are apparently stories of Roddenberry going way overboard in this episode, and Kandel, the guy who would bring him back, going, this is a TV show. This isn't about your sexual fantasies.
There's a quote from Shatner. He's saying he thought it was a miracle it even got made, let alone broadcast.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, oh, please. That would never make it to the Hughleys.
And I know because I watched several of them last night.
That wouldn't be, however, that would have definitely been on Homeboys in Outer Space, my other TV show. Do you guys not know that? I was on Homeboys in Outer Space, and I was not a space pimp. More's the pity. I really
if you need proof, we can put it in a comment later, but we did show that on this show last year. So if you have never seen John and Homeboys from Outer Space, the original pilot, you must check it out.
We actually did an episode that the theme was Homeboys in Outer Space because Joe, we had some tape of him doing Star Trek the movie experience. He had me for my one pilot episode of Homeboys in Outer Space. Anyway, we're not talking about Star Trek, and that's a shame. We got to get back on track here. Back on track. Oh, that's cute.
Let's get back on track, yes.
Oh, my favorite point of the show. Let us talk about Townsel's tidbits.
Well, I've got just a few, but I'm going to start with my favorite. This is the one that will provide everybody with Google material.
Oh, good.
Yes, and I'm going to read it off my little note here.
Right.
Susan Denberg, who plays Magna, the other blonde.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
She's gorgeous, and we saw her being gorgeous 2 months prior to this episode airing as Miss September in Playboy magazine.
Hang on, I'm gonna write down a little something I need to look up later.
Oh, we just crashed Google.
Really? In the 60s as well?
Yeah, August 1966, Centerfold, and of course this aired a couple months later on NBC.
Ooh,
so they're pretty much concurrent as far as the production,
That's fantastic. They had, and was she was
Miss August 1966. So yes, I mean, you didn't see everything in those days in Playboy, but you saw quite a bit.
Right. Well, I mean, and that too was such a taboo. Oh my gosh, the fact that she was on television in people's living rooms with their families. That's such a big deal in the 60s, but really cool. I had no idea. I wanted to raise a tidbit, if you will. There's no way to make this not sound dirty. I wanted to talk about Harvey Hart, who was the director on this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Harvey Hart went one day over schedule, and they never worked with Harvey Hart ever again. And that is a shame, but maybe not. I'll tell you why. Because you see a lot in this episode, the third episode produced, of what would end up being a very visual, recurring theme on Star Trek, and that would be the glamour shot.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of times where they'll cut to, and it's not just the women, they'll cut to Kirk sometimes, and there'll be like those big pieces of shadow that kind of really bring out his cheekbones and his eyes. And one of the things that had been said to the director Harvey Hart was, look, this is a time on NBC when we are absolutely pushing that it's color television. So go crazy with the color. Don't just use what color you might think would be in this building with this available light. Go crazy, make it look gorgeous, really take advantage of the color spectrum. And Harvey Hart was great at that. He made beautiful film. However, he took too long, and he cost them money by going over on schedule. So his signature look remains in the series, but Harvey Hart never worked on Star Trek again.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned Mr. Hart, because, okay, he ran one day over, went over budget, but he established techniques and methods that were utilized for the next 3 years. And certainly they got their money back in that respect.
One could argue that the series did it over and over again, that they referenced the gorgeousness and the lushness of how the picture looks, because Harvey Hart proved that that's how it should look. So yeah, he's someone we should admire. I think he's someone we should all be grateful to, just as people feel that about Gene Roddenberry. Another one of the great creators was Harvey Hart.
Yeah, too bad they didn't use him again, and who knows, maybe had the show run longer, they would have called upon him again to create new methods and techniques. you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, things happened the way they happened. That's actually one of the stories to the making of Star Trek. Things happened the way they happened. Was it the best way? No. Is it how it happened? Yes. And that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
What other
Well,
tidbits do you have for us, sir?
oh, got a couple others. I mean, number one, I thought was interesting. I'm going to disagree with Mr. Carmel on this one. Apparently, there was a fairly lengthy deleted scene where Harvey Mudd is trying to convince Uhura to take the Venus drug.
Oh,
and he's, the actor, Mr. Carmel, said he was really disappointed that got cut, although he enjoyed the experience overall. I have to respectfully disagree, though, because I don't see what sense it makes in the story.
right.
I mean, Uhura is already young and beautiful outwardly and inwardly.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what I mean. I guess we have to see the scene to understand its context.
Right.
But
go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, the one thing it might have done, at least for poor Nichelle Nichols, she might have looked a little less bored in this episode that had that semen in there. Anything frequencies open again, sir.
That's so true, because there were scenes that they would do with Uhura where she was very passionate about something, or she was, she's very young. And I wish I could remember what episode it was, because it was an episode that we've done, I think, on Retro Trekkers, where she gets mad at Mr. Spock because Mr. Spock is so unfeeling.
Yeah.
And she, it's not anger, but she's frustrated with him, and she expresses herself in such big theatrical ways, and he, of course, doesn't. And
That would be Charlie X, John.
oh boy, you're so good. You're so good, Townsend. I swear.
It must have been the fact that I think the only time she acted really bored and detached were the two episodes in which they put her in the yellow uniform, the gold uniform.
Interesting. Interesting. Raphael says, telephone operator to the stars. There are so many times when Uhura's job just looks really boring. And I also love on Galaxy Quest how the one woman character played by Sigourney Weaver,
Yes.
her main job is she just repeats what the computer says. And they get mad at her, but she's like, that's my job.
Yes. Go back and watch the show, you idiots. And of course, we all know, the now very famous story as told by Ms. Nichols about her meeting, Dr. Martin Luther King, and how she wanted to leave the show because it was, as far as an actor is concerned, it was very unchallenging and very dull. But he convinced her, said, you serve a purpose on this show. Keep it up, and she did.
There's a black lady on television, and she ain't no maid. And
she ain't no maid. As a matter of fact, as we established later, she was fourth in command.
Fourth in command.
Yeah, she was behind Scotty. We had to wait until I think the animated series to see her in command for a minute. But hey, she got there.
I'm really happy that we got to a time, this is so ridiculous to say, but I really do feel this way. I'm happy that I lived long enough where Nichelle Nichols is so celebrated, where Uhura is considered such a great part of Star Trek, that she was always there. She was always there. We just had to, as fans, notice her and appreciate her. Let's talk about some more tidbits. I've got one that I don't think you have, Mr. Townsend.
Well, I accept the challenge, sir. What do you got?
Now, you may know this about Karen Steele, who played Eve and who was very much a big part of this episode, that she was a veteran of movies. She had done 16 movies, including Marty, an Oscar winner from 1955. She had been on up to 50 television guest appearances, most of the time playing, and where did I get this from? Was this from Wikipedia? Playing tough, hard-boiled characters. Hooker with a heart of gold. Maybe not Hooker, but tough chick who's seen it all. And that's what she plays on this episode. She was born in Honolulu. She is a native Hawaiian.
Oh.
But you don't know this, Joe Townsend. She did not pass away in Hawaii. She did not pass away in Los Angeles. She passed away in Kingman, Arizona.
Oh my goodness! I did not
Your
know that.
former home.
Oh no! What a way to go, and what a place to go in. No disrespect, Kingman, but that does surprise me.
When I saw that in the notes, I was like, wait, what? Kingman? Like, you're the only person I ever knew who had ever lived in Kingman. And yeah, that's where she passed away.
Wow. Well, I was gonna lie through my teeth. Oh, I knew that, but I can't fake that. I did not have any idea of that occurrence.
Now that's a tidbit.
I think that's going to be the top tidbit tonight for sure.
Robert Carmel. Yeah, I say Carmel, although it could be Carmel. But
you pronounce Robert as Roger, though.
Oh, that's so dumb.
That much I'm certain of.
Roger Carmel. Roger Carmel was a big Broadway star.
Oh yeah.
Starting in the mid-50s. And he, having been in so many plays, he was very big. He was very theatrical. Do you remember the character he played on the Batman TV show?
King Tut, right?
No.
Oh no, that was it. That was Victor Buono. Oh my goodness.
Victor Buono. Yes, you got it before I did.
I'm at a loss on Rogers. Who did he play?
Colonel Gum.
Boy, I don't even remember that character now.
2 appearances.
Yeah.
2 appearances, apparently. He was the king of guest stars. He did guest starring parts all over the place. Yeah. But he had a series, and this one, oh man, this is insane.
I know it.
Oh, okay. All right. And Joe Townsend is going to tell you this Roger Carmel story.
Well, I don't know about the story. I just know the series, but hopefully I got the right one. Maybe there's 2. No, yeah. I was thinking of him in The Mothers-in-Law.
That's right. That's right. It's the only time he was a regular series. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize this, but Raphael, this makes so much sense. In the Green Hornet crossover episode.
Okay.
That was Colonel Gum. That makes sense because there was a comic book made later of that crossover. No, going back to what Joe was talking about, he was a regular on The Mothers-in-Law for 1 season. And the reason why it was only 1 season is because they had been told by their executive producer, Desi Arnaz Sr., that the show wasn't doing well enough for them to get the raises that were promised in their contracts. And so they had to forego their raise and they had to agree to it. The stars on the show all agreed to it. Yeah, okay, we don't get our raise. All right, fine. But Carmel was like, what? Oh no. Carmel went to the network and he said, Desi Arnaz is giving himself all of these jobs on the show. He's getting 4 paychecks being on this show. So for anyone to say the budget can't hold it, then why is he getting 4 paychecks?
Go Roger.
And as an actor, I love that. Because stand up for yourself. I mean, the great thing about Roger Carmel is he can go, what's the worst that can happen to me? I have to go do guest stars on other shows. I do that already. I have to go get a play on Broadway. I do that already. I have some more Roger Carmel geekery, but I'll pull back because you haven't gotten to go in a while, Joe. Any other Townsends you want, tidbits you want to throw out there?
I don't have any other Townsends to throw out there, but I have a couple tidbits. But time permitting, I'd like to hear more about Roger Carmel. But the tidbits, the only thing I had beyond that was that I thought was very interesting. That I'm sorry, I should have her name handy. The one that played the sexy brunette. Oh, they really made her up rough when she lost her Venus powers.
Yes.
And all they did with E was just like, okay, don't comb your hair. I mean, because they actually had to apply latex makeup to the brunette to make her look that bad.
Oh, she was so gorgeous. Yeah, they
Yeah.
had to work to make her look bad. What a beautiful actress. The scene that she does with McCoy, where she walks in front of the scanner, is so seductive. I
Yes.
love
Oh,
that
beep,
scene.
beep, beep, beep.
She's like stripper dancing, and she's like pussycat doll dancing on it, and it is amazing. So yes, that's very cool. The thing I was going to say about Roger Carmel did a lot of voiceovers in animation.
Yes.
That was a big job for him in his later years. And he debuted as a transformer in Transformers the movie as Cyclops. Cyclops? I think that's what
Close enough.
and then was added to the series. So he kept going. Let's talk about Harry Mudd. Harry Mudd had, of course, more than one live action episode.
Yes, we alluded to that earlier. I mean, he of course we would see him in season 2 in I Mud, which it occurred to me during the beat. I said, I should have slipped an I Mud slide in there because there was only a couple of women, great looking women, but they were multiplied like 15 times.
Exactly.
He would, of course, also appear as the character voiceover in Mudd's Passion in the animated series. And the most interesting thing I found, I've heard this before, that Roddenberry was trying to bring Roger Carmel into Next Generation at the beginning. Not necessarily as Mudd, but, that would have required some kind of device, obviously, to get the character in there. But unfortunately, Mr. Carmel, passed away not long before the show started at the age of 54. My goodness.
54.
And
oh my gosh.
And we would see Harry Mudd again in Discovery, played by Rainn Wilson. A decent job, but not Roger Carmel quality. So.
I actually really liked what Rainn Wilson did, but this is my complaint a lot about Discovery, which is, why did it have to be Harry Mudd?
Yeah, it could have been any character. Been a new character.
Any character. You could have given him his own name. This is my thing with the Gorns. Yes, okay, you've got this scary, lizard creature that's a monster and everyone's afraid of it. Why does it have to be Gorns? It could be something else, because we already knew Gorns, and as far as we knew, the Gorns weren't any less reasonable than any other space travelers. Yes. I always liked, Captain Kirk. It was like when they talk too. Why did we have to lose that? Anyway. we should probably wrap it up. Any other things you want to throw out there for the kids, Mr. Townsell?
No, I wanted in my tidbits on, the further appearances of Mudd. We got to that. So I think I'm good on tidbits.
Yeah, I think that was everything I had as well. Let's talk. Well, you know what? We haven't done our commercial. Let's do our
dancing in silver air. Joy and wonder are everywhere. Stories shared by firelight.
Kid loves
Make
it.
Christmas happy, warm and bright.
All those eyeballs.
Ho, ho, horror, what's beneath the tree? Ho, ho, horror, gifts as far as you can see. Every story has a turn when the shadows come to call. Ho, 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 best gift of them all. Pages turning in the dark, tales that leave their lasting mark. Every gift wrapped just for you holds a nightmare coming true. The stories crawl across your mind, leave reality behind. When darkness falls on Christmas Eve, there's no escape, you cannot leave. Ho, 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 what's beneath the tree? Ho, 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 now you finally see. Every story has a cost when the creature comes to call. Ho, 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 claims us one and all.
Joe Townsell, if people want to go to joetownsell.com and purchase a digital copy of any of your work or all of your work as a gift for people in their lives, that can be done, correct?
Absolutely. They're available ebook, traditional trade paperback, They can be presented as gifts of ebooks and so forth as well. So yes, any and all ways you want them, you can get them.
We are, I haven't been this excited for Halloween. Well, all holidays, frankly, this year. I haven't been this excited for Christmas in a long time. So folks, go on over to joetownsend.com and find something nice and give it to somebody you love, especially somebody who loves horror and science fiction, because Joe is an absolute master at those. He is a Gene Roddenberry, if you will.
Well, thank you. Sorry. Take that as high compliment and praise. And may I return the favor by saying that thanks to Mr. John Weber, the creative dynamo that he has created commercials that you do not want to fast forward through.
Thank you, sir. It's so sad when I don't get to be in other people's commercials, so I make my own. Hey, next week it stays steamy, my friends. Steamy in space, because we are going to do a Ryza episode. It's such a great idea, Joe. This was Joe's idea. Tell us about R&R on Ryza.
Well, as it alludes to in the ad here, it is a Trek getaway doubleheader. We're going to be looking at Captain's Holiday from Next Generation. And then later in the second half, we'll pick up with Let He Who Is Without Sin from Deep Space Nine, widely regarded as one of its worst. But you know what? That's debatable.
I agree. I absolutely agree. It's debatable. I have to say, though, when I first saw it, that episode, I hated it.
Well, and it does have the unfortunate distinction of airing immediately after Trials and Tribulations.
Oh, everything's going to look bad next.
So it was a tough act to follow for sure.
For sure. So 2 episodes of Star Trek, if you want to prep with us to watch and discuss.
Bring your Horgon.
For part 2 of 3 in the Trials and Titillation trilogy, which, are we just trying to get attention? Are we just trying to get people to watch? Yes. We are. And oh my gosh, what's the archaeologist's name? She's in the far left of the.
Oh, that would be Vosh. Vosh would come back twice more. The following year on now it was a Q episode, obviously.
It was.
Then she would come back with Q in Deep Space Nine as well. So
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Because when she was on the Q episode before, they left together, I believe.
Yeah, they went exploring the Gamma Quadrant, and then it wasn't very great experience for her. She missed her John Luke, I think.
Vosh is not a one man or space god woman. No, Vosh is a free spirit.
That's right.
Raphael says, wait a minute, is the Horgon the 23rd century pineapple sticker? I guess because swingers like it.
That's what you said. That's what you say after the prostitute leaves.
Oh my god. Yeah. Horgon for the ED. Yeah, it could happen. Oh, and on Thursday, on Mr. Weber's Web of Mystery, I will play a radio show for you. That's what we do. And it's a New Year's themed episode. It's called The First Year. That's coming up this Thursday, the day after Christmas, and 7 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, 10 p.m. on the East Coast. Tomorrow. Before we're done with the Christmas holiday, oh boy, we're going to have some fun tomorrow, aren't we, Mr. Townsend?
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
As it turns out, and Raphael actually hipped me to this morning, though thankfully I had found this out earlier, which was we cannot watch Santa Claus versus the Devil because some copyright pirates are claiming it as their own, and we'll be able to see some scenes from it. That won't be a problem. But the good news is we're going to watch another collection of clips and see a bunch of really great stuff, including our good friend Eric Kramer, who appeared once before on one of my shows back when I did Starbase 80. I think Flobo and I were the hosts then. and he was on. But Chris, that is correct. Eric played the first Thor, the first live action Thor. Help me out, Mr. Townsend. Was that the Hulk?
Yes, that would be. It was one of the subsequent TV movie follow-ups. I believe that must have been the maybe that was Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
That might be. Although Trial was Daredevil with Rex Smith, right?
No, that was Return of.
Oh, that's Return of. Oh,
I believe the three movies were Return, Trial, and Death.
Oh my!
What a way to put it!
What a trilogy! All right, so that's tomorrow. Join us at 5 p.m. It is regular weekend hours here at the Weber Internet Thingy. 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, 8 p.m. on the East Coast, and we will begin. It'll be a lot of fun. Bring your friends. Tell everybody who loves Eric Kramer. Oh my gosh, I gotta get some of that hype out there. I belong to a large 49. That was a great series that Eric was on. I belong to a group that loves him on Facebook. So I have to remember after this to go advertise that.
Well, like I said, I'm a big fan. I will unashamedly and unabashedly tell him so tomorrow. Does he such a great variety of roles and performances he's done, both humorous and menacing, and it's great. I'm looking forward to meeting him and tomorrow get my wish.
Yes. I can't believe this is the first time you're meeting Eric. So that's great. And as Raphael points out, yes, it's on our other channel, not on the Weber Internet Thingy. It's on Retro Rangers HQ on YouTube. And Chris brings this up. Eric worked with Newhart. He was on the Bob Newhart series that did not the best.
Oh, Bob.
He was on Bob. But he and I met when we were on the Hughleys. He's done so many great roles. Lodge 49, that's a great show. You should really check that one out. And of course, he played Bob Duncan on the show Good Luck Charlie. And it is so funny to see how many kids regard my friend Eric as like their second father.
Wow, that's great.
It's wonderful. And he loves it. I hung out with him in bars when kids have walked up to him and asked for autographs, and he is so sweet and so nice and has never said, get away, kid, you bother me. He's not that kind of guy. He's the other kind of guy who is really great to the fans. So
I'm going to say this one more time, and I'll say it again tomorrow, of course. Yeah. If you want to see some, just have a double treat, if you can find the Hughleys, Mr. Weber here appeared in several episodes as friend Walter. And to see both of them together in the same show, especially, was a real treat. I watched several of them last night, and they're great. So
it's so funny because we were private messaging, and he was like, "Oh, hey, now I'm watching this episode where oh my God, Tyra Banks was on this episode. Oh yeah,
John was in the same room with her.
She was very sweet.
Well, good. I was curious about that.
Oh, I'll tell you what. She knew she was in a tough place, and she was humble and sweet and a hard worker. And everyone just adored her. And that was before she got her own shows and all that stuff. Here I am dragging. It's the Irish goodbye. Dragging my feet. I hate to say goodbye. Love doing this show. Mr. Townsend, another great one. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. It was great. And I'm so glad we got to debut our new TNG DS9 Voyager era uniforms.
Hang on. I promised my wife I would do this.
Oh, the Picard maneuver, hereinafter known as the Weber maneuver.
Folks, that is it. Chris and Ralph, thank you so much for joining us in the studio for this one. It is just an absolute treat to have you with us. And hey, if you're watching this episode, we'd love it if you could join us live. But if you can't, we love that you watch. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely.
And that'll do it. Dance off into the night.
Retro trackers. Retro trackers. Got them yawn and Commander Joe. Retro trackers. We love our Star Treks. Retro trackers. The nerd muscles get to flex. Retro trackers. Get down with the retro. Retro trackers. Let's get done. Cat Review. Retro Review.